Dev and Raven.
Thank you very much, Jordan. Here we are in this beautiful bank, but I think there's a robbery about to happen.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting how August take these vetoes. They're going to want to not disadvantage themselves with these bans, and they really want to mess up Xavier's jam.
Yeah, and I mean, historically, we've seen August want to get... Okay, wow, okay. So Xavier is going to get rid of the Thermite off the bat. Now, something that you and I have talked about in the past is how Xavier counter a Maverick. So, you know, sometimes you might see a Maverick ban, or you typically see one hard breach ban, but with the Maverick in play, and if August decide to, you know, embrace that, Xavier are very comfortable, you know, countering that Maverick. They're very comfortable peeking up through those Maverick holes, which is something that you don't see a lot of, but Xavier, they make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also saw a Montaigne ban there coming out of August, and they're taking out the mirror as well. Pretty standard ban with the mirror on defense. Just easier to not take it at all.
Yeah, and Xavier get the last one as well. It will, in fact, be the Maestro. So, something that we were talking about as we were watching one of Xavier's matches on Bank just the other night is how Xavier used the Kaid. And obviously now Wind Bastion operators well into the meta. We can use them, Nomad and Kaid, neither of which are banned here. And with all of the hatches that are available on this map, bringing in that Kaid really can, you know, prevent that push. And I think that a crucial thing here for August is going to be that Thatcher pick.
Yeah, absolutely. Thatcher is definitely the easiest counter to Kaid, so they're going to definitely want to make sure they've got that with all of their attacks, just in case the Kaid pick does come out. We don't see it initially selected here from Xavier, but we might see a 6 pick come out just to change it up. But we do see them playing in the Executive Lounge CEO bomb site, so potentially not even a Kaid kind of map bomb site.
Yeah, I mean, so typically we do see them take that bottom floor first, but no, it's CEO that they're picking up, which is typically, I believe, their second choice objective. But the real gamble here for me, if I'm coming from August's perspective, is that Echo's still on the board. Now, if you recall at the SOC, 6 Oceanic Cup, just recently, one of the very strong rounds from Fnatic in that 2-0 that August took was a 1 versus 3 clutch by Magnet on the Echo on this bomb site. And so we know that August do struggle to deal with that operator, and I think that could certainly factor into this round.
Yeah, that is a good read there from Xavier. Going to see the pulse pick as well, so this could indicate they're going to potentially play below late round just to try and deny from below. So August are going to have to make sure that they've got really good flank drones and just watching how the defenders rotate just to make sure they're not caught off guard if they're going to go try for an early execute.
I think another thing that we should really touch on here is that we briefly mentioned that Thermite ban, but this bomb site in particular, with Thermite gone, I think that's why Xavier are picking this first up. You'll so typically see those Thermite charges be used on those east walls of the CEO coming from Square Skylight. And with that unavailable, it'll rely solely on this Hibana, and it can be fairly easy to impact trick those Hibana pellets unless you put them very low, and if you put them low, then you can't really walk through them.
Yeah, that's right. And I guess if they can't deny that that initial Hibana shot, which I would predict that Diesel will put really low to the bottom, it makes it hard to deny that wall in the first place. So it's interesting how Xavier's going to try and play this strat.
Yeah, trying to take out that castle barricade from Dirt, but fortunately he doesn't cook the grenade just perfectly, and so he won't enable that line of sight just yet. Of course, Sledge is a good counter to the castle, but it only works if you can get up nice and close, and it's not going to be possible for those castle barricades towards the front desk. In fact, it'd be a Zephyr and Ashe that would really be optimal for that job, which in this case is just not on the board.
Yeah, and it's really interesting the position that Producer Boom is playing there in the janitor's closet. He might be potentially using that pulse scanner just to get a read on if they're planting, and knowing the way that Xavier play, that extra aggression, he might be looking to just peek out, just get the scan and either peek out himself or use a teammate.
Look, I completely agree with you. This is a great potential play from Producer Boom, but we know that there are ways to deny that as well using a Maverick, but as Xavier players start to back each other up, this could be dangerous territory for August. That said, you know, making pretty good time so far. A player on those north windows, Emo-Rin ready to put pressure onto that CEO office as the rest of the players try to figure out how they'll deal with this wall.
Yeah, and look, August look very aware of this position in Janitors. They're very concerned about that run out. They're droning it quite heavily. They've got players stacked right at the top of those stairs and at the edge of that hallway. Joey is holding that angle just to make sure that run out doesn't happen. So it looks like August have seen the style that Xavier play, and they're really wary of that kind of aggressive run out that could happen.
Yeah, and as we see that pulse, in fact, that information now been sent downstairs. Of course, we know how prominent the pulse is vertically. I believe that Thatcher is intended for the pulse. It may well deny some information if that, you know, area of effect of that EMP did pursue downstairs, but I'm not sure that's the case. And, oh, what? Diesel planting? surely this won't be allowed. There's so much information operator gathered on Xavier, but I guess there was just no execution. Still no frags come out. 5 versus 5 as the first 2 frags start rolling. Hajime, a 1K actually, but he's refragged immediately. Still, this is an opportunity to retake as Xavier even up the man count 2 and 2.
Yeah, this is a really difficult position now for Xavier with this retake and the diffuser down. August look like, oh, Joey with a nice frag there, and now it's a 2v1. Healthcare all by himself with the Echo drones.
Yeah, this is the real struggle, though, for Healthcare. He knows he has to find his first gunfight, and in fact, he won't. Joey G, a great round for the man on that flank watch roll.
Yeah, and that was really, really well played by August. They just strategically set themselves up. They got the wall control, and they just pushed in for the quick plant. They just knew that they could take that position and that Xavier were focused on something else at that point. And Xavier, with all the intel operators that they had, they completely missed it.
That's something really surprising, isn't it? You'd think that Xavier, with all those information gathering operators, I suppose the thing that really comes down to it is the Echo wasn't on his yokai and the Valkyrie wasn't on her cameras and the Pulse wasn't actively scanning beneath, because that's a long 7-second plant time. And on top of that, the attack actually has to move into the room. Those are all signals that you really should be able to, take into account, but I just think it was well played on Auglist, especially things like Thatcher grenades to deny a bit of information from the Pulse, but also just a little bit of oversight from Xavier that we'll need to see them rectify if they want to stay in bank. Yeah,
and even a subtle thing, Auglist were really keeping that janitor position busy with the drones that they were throwing through, and that was the Pulse and the Valkyrie that we saw playing those positions. So again, that was just the denial of their use of intel so they could actually get that plant down.
Despite this, they will retry that exact same bomb site with the exact same lineup, I believe.
Yep.
So, look, Xavier looking into this round, the attitude that they must have right here is, okay, we banned the thermite to make this bomb site stronger, and yet we still don't win it. And obviously we're in a defensive-sided meta. I'd like to think that this bomb site is won by the defense more often than not. And that's not happening already straight out of the gate. Xavier really needs to make some changes, and as we can see, that right there, that impact rotate, that's something to change.
Yeah, that's a big change actually, because they were playing that heavy aggressive position in janitors. So now having that rotate means they're probably going to play a bit more freely on the bomb site and probably rely a little bit more on a roam or a flank later on. So yeah, quick adaptations there from Xavier.
That's good as well, because that position they were playing so heavy inside of janitors, now with that rotation, they'll be able to have an impact onto those default plant spots, maybe get a little bit more of that information.
Exactly.
Bit of a two-way street though, of course. It does allow Auglist more lines of sight.
Going to see Diesel here just getting that early intel with the Habana. They definitely don't want to try and take it too quickly, because again, they don't want to play into Xavier's quick, aggressive play style. So August definitely going to take their time and just make sure they're fully aware of what Xavier's trying to do, and again, just take their opportunities when they see them.
Lycolis does in fact find the first early pick. A lot of utility wasted now on the Thatcher. I believe that was, wow, that was aggressive. Moving all the way into stock and peeking out onto that exterior balcony and still unpunished as well. A good play from Xavier.
That's a really big L there for August, losing that Thatcher really early. If he hasn't had a chance to use his EMPs, then like that Echo and even the Valkyrie, they've still got the IQ to counter the Valkyrie, but especially that Echo drone, it can roam a lot more comfortably now and not worry about being disabled.
Auglist do still have, of course, the pressure from the windows, and now Derpo has more lines of sight available. We did earlier see Ethan as well pushing potentially from that main lobby, which is just another opportunity for crossfire, but that becomes more and more difficult as your numbers start dwindling and you lose that advantage. Obviously, Xavier, when it comes to, a rush of bodies, they will have the superior numbers.
Yeah, and we're seeing more window control here coming out of Auglist. They're really trying to put more pressure onto the bomb site. I think they're having a little more trouble dealing with that wall, so they're just trying to really move the defenders around just so they can either get some picks or have a bit more freedom with the way they want to push.
Good information being set up. We saw that rotation of the yokai drone. I believe Auglist are in a position where they know that the next step for them will be difficult, and they want to find a pick before that happens, but time is dwindling. And as we see Imorin watching this flank from the hallway, defending Diesel from as he deploys his X-Kairos pellets. Imorin lands a few shots, but doesn't quite finish off Lycolis, as I believe, is this a two-man flank from, no, just the one producer gathering as much information as possible.
Down. Lycolis down in the hallway there, so he was already low, and Imorin's going to finish off that kill onto Lycolis. We've got 30 seconds to go on, so 4v4, and Auglist haven't made as much progress on the bomb site as they probably would have liked. They're going to have to start really pushing and getting ready for this execute. Diesel does push in, and the plant is going down. He's being covered from the windows.
Oh, no!
Oh, Hajime denies that. Hajime again with another one onto Emo Rune. It's a 2v4 with 13 seconds to go. Diffuser is down on the bomb site, not planted. Derpe has pushed in aggressively. Ethan onto Healthcare. It's a 2v3 with 5 seconds. They're going to have to get the plant down. Ethan all by himself on bomb site. I think Derpe is down, and defenders will take that round. Really well played by Xavier, and a good read of what August were trying to do.
Absolutely. I mean, you said it, they did make some adaptations, and it's really interesting to see sometimes when we look at a round and the differences between one another, we'll say, all right, they brought the same operators, therefore they're not learning, they're not changing anything. And Xavier have demonstrated that it's actually the way that you set it up that makes the big difference. They had the exact same utility available, but the round played out completely differently.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the total difference was just the way they played it. You could see it in their setup with that rotate. They wanted to play more freely, and it really ended up just shutting August down because they weren't able to get that wall as easy, especially with that Thatcher getting picked early. I think that really put a dent in what August wanted to do.
And I think that you could make an argument here that August is the more experienced team. They've been to a lot of LAN events now. Xavier, they've been, you know, obviously really strong, but perhaps a bit younger in terms of how long their team's been around for. But I don't think that's showing here. You know, we have Xavier still, you know, they lose a first round and they stick with their guns and they think, no, we're doing this bomb site once again, but we're going to do it right this time. We're making those adaptations. And if they can do that with only, you know, one round that they lose for it, I think that's actually a really good position to be in. Yeah,
it's definitely a strong suit of theirs. They often repeat bomb sites when they lose them, and often they really change the way it's played. It's often never played the same way if they do it 2 times in a row, which is really bold confidence in the way they adapt to teams mid-round. We do finally see them take downstairs now, which is the common default for this map. And we do see the Kaid pick out of Lacolis.
Yeah, this is something we saw work incredibly well from Xavier. And for example, in their final Pro League match when they played against Airwolf had a very strong showing, but still Xavier's hold, particularly of this downstairs area, Lacolis with that SG, that slug shotgun, it is... like, he is a terror to behold.
Absolutely. Yeah, and even when we saw them playing against Airwolf in the last week of the Southeast Asian Pro League, like, Hollis wasn't even afraid to peek Maverick as he was opening a hatch with that shotgun. So that really indicates the way that they like to play, and especially like Hollis, he's a very aggressive player. He's not afraid to peek anything at all.
No, I mean, in that same very match, we saw him get a 1 versus 3, like, almost impossible 1 versus 4, I think, clutch on Thermite on that same bomb site. So, you know, everything is, you can never count out Xavier Esports.
Yeah, and it looks like August are going to do a top-down take just to make sure they've got that map control. This is a really good choice by August not to even try to ignore a roam. They're going to have to try and take it because without that, knowing Xavier, they're going to be able to run around them and they're going to be worried. So they're going to have to do this roam clear before they can even think about pushing bomb site.
I think that was actually a really well-placed drone to spot out where the Kaid charge was. And there you go, a great control of that upstairs janitor's closet, and then using that vertical play, Derpe cuts off Red Sun. So a lot of those Legion mines won't be activated upon.
Yeah, it's definitely a loss for Xavier early on. They're going to want those goo mines to be giving them intel or just help slow down the attackers, but that's not going to happen anymore. So it's going to put a bit more pressure on, especially the smoke and even the echo, just to deny or slow down that plant.
So that's the hard open area hold completely cleared out now. And Ethan may well decide it's about time to open up this red hallway hatch. In fact, that looks like the play.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if Lycolis does try to actually peek him. And I almost feel like Ethan's opening this a different way for that exact reason.
Interesting. So we see a lot of teams open that specific corner, but I don't know if Lycolis will be able to use the angles that he wants with that setup. I suppose we'll have to see as Lycolis decides to get aggressive later in the round.
Yeah, and this is good time management from August. With a whole minute to go, they've started to open that wall so they can start baiting out all that denial and get ready for an execute with potentially 15, 20 seconds.
Lycolis!
He does lit Ethan up very low there.
And that's exactly what we were talking about, those aggressive plays.
Yep.
It's only 40 seconds remaining now, and as August start to do this final push, Xavier will be very ready to receive.
Well, that's a lot of intel just taken out instantly just then. That was really well played by August, and they're still trying to bait out this utility, so this is going to be a really down-to-the-wire execute.
Another frag toss just to deny that push in. EMPs as well be denying both the Yokai and those that pulse. No, there is no pulse, so just playing it safe, denying as much information as possible. But push is about to come to shove, and Xavier Esports have 4 men up and ready to receive. You can see they're ready to peek it. That's a C4, denying the plant. More peeks on out. Derpe knows it's so difficult, and Joey with a team kill. There's nothing that August can do.
Yeah, really well played by Xavier. They had just slowed them down as much as possible with some of those aggressive peaks, and they just had so much denial left, and August just weren't able to bait it out early enough. So it really cost August, because at the end of the day, when they needed to try and stick that plant, there were still smokes, there was still a yokai, there was still a C4. There was essentially nothing they could do.
And you could have a look at Xavier's setup at the start of that round and say, well, look, they have an open area hole, but they're only dedicating one player to it. They lose it without any impact frags whatsoever, and August take that control. But of course, that did delay some amount of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was the Legion they lost early, and that definitely would have helped Xavier even more late rounds. So that was a good pick from August. But yeah, it was just that late round adaptation from Xavier, just really able to just stall August out.
Yeah, I think that the key is that sometimes when you have those roams, those heavy holds of a specific off-site area, it's typically you're reducing your capability on-site. But in this case, that wasn't what we saw.
Yeah, and wow, we see Producer Boom with a cav pick here. It's going to cause even more havoc for August on that roam clear, potentially slow them down a lot, or a really devastating flank or something with that cav.
I mean, this is welcome to Xavier Esports, ladies and gentlemen. This is what we know about Xavier Esports, and what we know about Xavier Esports is that they're an unconventional team. They don't play like the rest of the world does. You know, they, as you said, like you paraphrased the quote that we had from Lycolis just recently. He said, when he was asked about his play style, he said, "It's nothing special. We just try hard in ranked for 4 hours a day, and if a team asks us to scrim, then we'll do it." And that's what this produces.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's good. Like, I'm not saying this as a negative thing about Xavier Esports. They do something that no one else does, and they do it so well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely like the reverse priorities you'd see for most pro teams. And I think that makes them really difficult to play against, because round by round, you're constantly reanalyzing what they're doing, because it's just not too much is standard for them. I mean, you can even see with the entire defensive lineup, that's a really unconventional, not standard at all lineup for most bomb sites, let alone this.
Yeah, and like here we have, you know, a roaming smoke, but, you know, conventional logic says that this is a bad idea, but Red Sun is in a fantastic position. Obviously, he's feeling the pressure, but he could drop down very easily. He could delay time using his utility very easily, and he can take close-range gunfights, you know, with complete comfort using that shotgun.
Yeah, that's right. And we see August trying to surround him because they're aware of his position. We see Imo Rin pushing to the top of the Skylight stairs, and he's going to open that wall while Derpy is holding that window just so that the smoke doesn't peek out. They're also holding the janitor hallway, so he is essentially trapped besides the hatch drop, which is a good position for August, but at the moment he's just delaying them and stalling them out, and we're actually almost halfway through the round, and August haven't made any picks or too much progress.
Yeah, and how are the other Xavier players allowed to just move around so freely? Red Sun may be trapped, but the rest of Xavier are ready to receive. I mean, we saw Lycolis freely roaming around that south side hallway. Healthcare still upstairs. Lycolis is finally taken down, but Healthcare gets a good refrag onto Derp, the sledge off the board alongside those grenades. Still Red Sun allowed to play inside of Janitors, and he could even drop now and he will have done more than enough work.
Totally, and Healthcare is still unscathed in that position. He's just holding that crossfire, and oh, the smoke almost gets peeked out by Joey there. He's stuck in that corner. Ooh. Oh, nice shot from Joey. Takes the head of Red Sun off. It's a 4v3 with a minute to go. August in favor at the moment, but Healthcare is still in this roam, and Producer Boom was ominously looking like he was going to drop a hatch before, potentially for a late flank.
Jame does find that one kill. For me, the real impact here will be from Healthcare. And in fact, he punishes Emo Rin. August suddenly realize, wait, there's another player on the top floor. Xavier are so difficult to predict. You kill 2 players on the top floor, you think, all right, that's it. They've spent so many drones and so much utility diesel. Of course, one of those droners, he now has to face check all of this. He needs to reload the Type 89 as well, mate. 8 bullets isn't going to cut it. As he flashes himself into the bomb site, Ethan does do some good work, but there's a refrag. Just Diesel left, still only 8 bullets in the magazine, but Hajime won't let him get a single one out. That's 3 straight for Xavier.
Yeah, that's really well played again from Xavier, and that just slow denial of the roam clear was so critical, and it didn't even look like the dock was droned out. August seemed like they had no idea that dock was playing up near in that meeting room. So
I think that a lot of it comes down to, you know, August use all these drones. They find like all this Red Sun. They take out those 2 players, and then the drones are, you know, mostly used up, and the remaining players are like, okay, we've finally accomplished our goal. We've taken out these players, and yes, it was costly, but we've done it. And that's because that's predictable. That's what you would expect. But we're coming up against Xavier Esports. You can't predict them like that. You can't expect that they'll only have 2 players on the top floor, that they won't rotate one up on a whim. Yeah,
exactly. And we see them going back to the top floor here because they did win 3 in a row, so they can start back at their first pick of bomb site. And we saw a 6th pick.
Your favorite.
The Alibi, yeah. Don't talk to me about Alibi.
We'll get into it later in the round, I think. We can dig deep into that as we see how Xavier does attempt this one. But look, August should be expecting this top floor bomb site as, you know, they can do the maths just like we have.
Absolutely.
And they've changed this up. So I'm talking about their operator lineup, right? For example, they've ditched the Maverick because they know that they won't be attacking downstairs. They've got the Zephyr, Ethan playing that one, and they've also got rid of the Sledge with Derp deciding to play the Blackbeard instead.
Yeah, I really like the Blackbeard pick because at the end of the last push that August were doing onto this bomb site, they were really trying to have that window presence. So now with the Blackbeard, they can have an even stronger presence on window. Derp could be more confident to peek that and get some frags early so that they can start moving around a bit more freely. So I think that's a really good decision for August to 6-pick onto that because their other operators weren't making the impacts they needed.
And speaking of 6 picks and window play, we do have the Alibi, which, I mean, you can fight me on this, but Alibi, her use is for putting those Prismas into areas where you can't destroy the Prisma, but the gunfight you intend to take involves that Prisma, the angle that Prisma is covering, and that's exactly how we'll see Alibi used. You know, the angles from these windows. We won't be able to have Derper make full use of that Blackbeard if he's coming up against his alibis. Yeah, that's true. And the way Producer Boom set that up in the janitors is really interesting with the shield in front. He's really trying to sell that that's a played position. And also, they could use that late round. If the alibi isn't actually fragged out, they could replay that position actually as the alibi to deny those windows just to get the jump on the Blackbeard. Yeah, I think that's something that's completely underrated. We almost never see it in Pro League, is actually standing inside of those Prisma devices. But if any team's going to make it work, I'll put my money on Xavier. Yeah, I definitely agree with you with that. And for me personally, even picking an alibi is a loss of a lot of utility on defense. So it's quite what you'd say a ballsy move from Xavier to play that strat. But like you said, if anyone's going to do it, it would be Xavier. They really like to play with the meta and not even really play meta picks. They just like to do what's comfortable for them and what they think is going to work, and it's working for them, so why change that? Exactly. Oh, and look at that. That's an adaptation. They've completely opened up the floor of that default plant spot that August made. And I just love this from Xavier. You know, every single round where you see something different. And that's the thing, you know, something that players are sometimes critical of, you know, this very high-level competition is we often see players devise the most effective strategies and they repeat that time and time again. And Xavier Esports don't have that mentality. It's completely different. They don't even think about it like, okay, this is our strat. They just think we play the game and we add new tricks to our arsenal. Yep. And then we make adaptations. Yeah, and August, they haven't made much progress here. There's a minute to go, and Derpe is up on this window. He's trying to poke. He hits a Prisma, which is going to slow him down and not be able to get as many shots onto the defenders as he'd like. Producer Bim constantly repositioning these alibis. A really interesting use of alibi by him. And August, I've really stalled out here. There's less than a minute to go. In fact, only 40 seconds. Producer Boom is the only person that's lost HP on the defense, and August are really still only trying to get the wall open now, so this is going to be a really quick last-minute execute from August, which favors Xavier a lot. It's the way they've set this bomb slide up, they've got so many ways to deny. And where are the picks from August? It's what they know that they need. It's why you play on those windows, but the first one is Diesel falling with the diffuser as well. Hajime does find that kill with the UMP, an attempted repel from August, completely aware of by Xavier, but it's a desperate attempt now for the Australians. The tie are ready to receive. Joey goes for a very aggressive plant spot, and in fact, Derp is doing a good job of covering, but that Echo drone is doing so much work for Joey. Timer hits 0. All they have to do is deny the plant, but Healthcare, he can't land the shots. There's still presence on the window. Healthcare has to deny this plant. It goes down, but he's in such a good position. It's just Derp remaining, and he gets taken down. Xavier Esports in the retake. Wow, what a hectic finish to that round, Dev. That was absolutely insane. Healthcare, he just couldn't quite get the shots, and finally they were able to get the frags they needed so they can defuse the plant. Really well played by Xavier. It's an absolute pleasure to watch Xavier Esports play, because it's unlike watching any other team that I've ever seen. It's just the things that they bring to the table and their mentality as a team is just so contrasting. Yeah, and it's really interesting because in ANZ traditionally, August are really good, like counter-stratting team. They're really good at adapting to teams, and I think this really perfectly counters August because
Xavier, you can't really read them. Again, they're changing their setups every time. They're changing the operator lineups, the way they play it. It's really hard to read. So August are going to constantly be on the back foot trying to counter-strat that and analyze it mid-round. And yeah, it's just hard to do.
I was talking to August after their match at the 6 Oceanic Cup against Fnatic, when they were talking about how they counter-stratted Fnatic. They watched Fnatic's VODs and they saw the positions that they always play. And they saw the patterns that Fnatic had developed and their preferences as players. And August could use that information to just know, well, I know there's going to be a player holding this window, so I can run out from here where he's not looking and get a free pick. That worked against Fnatic because Fnatic, you know, they had preferences, they had predictability. But Xavier Esports, the only thing that's consistent is their inconsistency.
Yep, you're actually totally right there with that. And speaking of inconsistency, they've ditched the Kaed, which worked relatively well for them last time, and they've got an Ella pick with Lycolis, which is, again, the absolute aggression out of Lycolis. I'd expect him to play these in a really interesting, aggressive way. Yeah, likely the server stairs so that he can deny the push there from August and really just stall them out, but also probably aggressively peek anybody that tries to push him.
It's a good slew of rounds as well so far from Xavier. Just the one at the start for August, but now Xavier's done around the world. 3 bomb sites, headed back downstairs this time around, and just a nice quick roam clear. Not as much trouble as it was previously, where we saw Xavier playing so many people upstairs. August not feeling too much pressure, but I do think that the way they've been rattled in this previous rounds will just mean that they're not, they're not too fast on that to clear.
Yeah, something really interesting we saw there as well, that Xavier dedicated time in their setup to make the rotates upstairs. There was a rotate hole in Janitors, and even though they're not playing it, it's going to emphasize for August that they need to be careful. They need to make sure they've droned really thoroughly and that they're aware of the positions of all the defenders, because if they're not careful enough, they'll just get jumped out on, and it's a really bad position for them.
And I think that's why we're seeing the Jackal, actually. But this is, okay, speaking of the defense, and speaking of Xavier doing interesting things.
Is that an M870?
Hello there. M870 Jaeger right here, playing in such a strong position. He's just waiting for a drone, I think. Surely that's what he's waiting for.
Actually,
right
an insanely good bait of the Jackal as well. They might try and push this aggressively, knowing there's somebody on these stairs, but they've got the M870 and the Ella here to get that frag. It's just unreal the way that they're trying to play this.
And as soon as the Jackal tracks one of these players, they stop him out. Look at that. This team chemistry is insane. Now, that's a good Thatcher grenade. A frag followed up might do some strong work, but juggling ADSs. Like,
he had them all in his pocket before he came to these stairs. That's not something you normally see happen.
Xavier Esports, ladies and gentlemen. Xavier Esports, juggling ADSs, shotguns in the server stairs. August have no idea how to make this play, but Dirtbear is going to get aggressive onto it. A lot of landed shots, but just not enough. There's a good refrag from Joey.
Wow, that's unfortunate Producer Boom didn't get Dirtbear in that first hit, but a really nice refrag from Joey there.
I think some good conviction from August deciding, all right, we know that this is difficult, but we just have to go for it. Just get the refrag, play for basics, and Xavier Esports didn't have Lycolis there as well, backing up Producer Boom. But it means that Xavier Esports have denied a huge amount of time.
Yeah, and this is even noticeably slower, the August getting this wall open. They actually had it open with a minute to go last time, and it's 15 to 20 seconds less this time. And even last time, they were stalled out when they were trying to get the execute. So again, this is going to come right down to the wire with this execute, which really favors the defense. They've got so much denial left.
Still, I believe we may have a Thatcher grenade remaining from Joey to try to put a stop to those Echo drones, but of course it's not always going to work out. And OK, Diesel goes for an aggressive planned spot, but he's taken out by Lycolis. Completely playing so well with the Scorpion. Lycolis again, just 2 players left for August. And where is the play? Joey's down on the floor. Lycolis is a madman right now, but Ethan takes him down. It's not enough for August.
Wow, that was incredibly played by Lycolis. He just went absolutely nuts with Ella and the Scorpion. He was able to get a 3-piece, and it really put August on the back foot. And yeah, all it was left is for Ethan just to drop hatch and pray that he can get a couple of frags.
If you're doing looking at Xavier Esports, you think, how do I play like Xavier Esports? Why can they get away with things that I can't get away with in my team? And I think it comes back to that roster stability. It's these guys know each other so well. Like, obviously, August, they have great team chemistry, but you know, Diesel's joined the team in the last few months, and Joey as well joined the team in the last few months. And then, you know, before that, the pattern continues. These guys are making roster changes. And I just think that Xavier here, they are completely in sync. They just they know all the preferences of what their players on their team like to do, and they just work completely in sync.
Yeah, and we see August take attack pause here, which is, I think, a really good call. They're definitely on the back foot with this match. They're going to have to do something to try and adapt to Xavier. You brought up a really good point about the roster. They've had a really stable roster, and like you were saying, to execute this kind of playstyle, you really need that undervalued synergy. Playing with a roster for so long, you develop really second nature to how each other play, and if you're going to be changing everything round to round and even mid-round the way they play, seeing them how they rotated off those server stairs like as a duo, unreal. And yeah, Xavier, you have to stick together to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I hate to say the R word, but ranked. Like, these guys playing a lot of ranked, it is actually helping them in a really unique way that we don't see from many other teams. And it means that they've seen everything under the sun, because that's what you get in ranked. You have players who go for individual players. You have teams who are very organized in ranked. You have people who, you know, abuse utility. You have players that use no utility. You have people that drone for each other. You have people that don't. So Xavier's seen everything right now, and they're so familiar with it, and they're so familiar with bringing new ideas to counter it, or bringing new ideas from those players and those unexpected things, and bringing it into a more mature setting.
That's right, and we see some really interesting picks on the roster of August here. They've decided to go with a Vigil and a Capcan. It's a really interesting choice. I imagine the Vigil is to try and slow Xavier down with their roam clear, and the Capcan as well will slow Xavier down. They don't even have an IQ, so if Xavier aren't too careful, they definitely could lose a lot of HP to that Capcan.
If Xavier start walking into these Capcan traps, I think that's completely on Xavier. If you've watched almost any of August's VODs on this map, you will have seen that they love Capcan.
Yep.
It's something we've also seen from Fnatic. It's becoming, you know, those two teams in particular, I've seen a large amount of Capcan. The strategy is quite simple. It's statistically likely that you will land a shot onto at least one of those players. And that's a huge amount of damage done. And when push comes to shove, plant denial needs to come out. It's one of two things. It's a C4 or a gas babe. And obviously the gas babe, it does damage over time. So a player who's lit up, it'll kill much faster. And a C4, it'll kill much further away. But as you mentioned, Cole is the first one to find a pick. This guy's insane.
What an aggressive push-up as well. It's only 30 seconds down. They're already in server, and they've already taken a pick, which was onto the Valkyrie. Insanely quick from Xavier. Again, I'm not really sure. They're not even roam clearing, it looks like. They're just pushing straight to site. Like, Cole is not afraid to shoot, not to pick anything, and he's going to open this wall, and they're going to have so much time for this execute.
I think that they don't feel the need to roam clear because they don't think that they need to do what many teams do, which is, all right, we know that there's no one upstairs, forget about it, stop watching flank. I think that, I mean, obviously, okay, now, as I say this, they are doing a roam clear. But look, honestly, I think that Xavier Esports have the level of synergy required that they probably don't even need to do that as much as other teams would. Oh, aggressive play from Ethan, that's a perfect read. And Xavier Esports will find it very difficult to finish opening that wall with no Maverick.
I think that's something that August exactly have to do what Ethan's done, is they have to be equally unafraid to peek Xavier, and that's a really good pick because now that wall is going to be stuck in that status of not open. They're using 2 Hibana charges here to open these hatches, and I do believe the Maverick was able to get the long wall open downstairs, but it's going to really reduce what they're able to do. In fact, that long wall might even just be a line of sight, so that could really mess up with what Xavier are trying to do with their execute.
I mean, talking about that wall, wall that was partly open as well, where you would usually plant, that's going to be very difficult to open up, even if you wanted to with the Hibana pallet.
Absolutely. So we see August mostly back on site now. In fact, I think they are all back on site. They're just going to anchor down with a minute to go. Xavier are going to have to start thinking about how they're going to tackle this execute now that they can't actually open either of those walls. I'd expect to see them potentially try to drop the hatch. Maybe the Ying might try and just Candela in and push really aggressively while they get that plant down. They've got 45 seconds to go, so they're going to have to start doing more positive moves towards an execute.
There is no Jaeger on the board for August, and we have decent amount of stun grenades as well as, of course, the Ying charges, and I think that's really what Xavier will have to leverage. Oh, but cautious of the flanker, drone catches it out, and Ethan heads straight on upstairs. Producer doesn't manage to catch that one out, and Joey, in fact, does some good work against Red Sun. The plant attempting to come down, but it's an absolute mess from Xavier. They take control of the garage. Now they know that there's a flank, but there are still players on site as well. It's a tug of war between Xavier and August right now, and Diesel as well in the elevator. Doesn't manage to cut off the cross. Ethan as well, just running rampant downstairs, but Xavier have only healthcare left, and he knows he has to chase these frags. Diesel will find that final one, and August get back into the game.
Yeah, really well held up there by August. And Ethan, once he knew that he was up those stairs, he just legged it. He wasn't going to get chased face down. He didn't want to get fragged out, and I think it was really well played by August. A good read into what Xavier was doing. And again, Ethan, I think, really won that round for August. Getting that Maverick, it really ruined what they were trying to do with their execute. They weren't able to get through those walls, and it meant they had to do something incredibly messy, and it played into what August were trying to do.
I think that Xavier like a messy playstyle when it's on their terms, and it wasn't on their terms at the end there. Obviously, they were preparing for a messy take. They wanted to Ying Candela in and drop and find frags. It's not a guaranteed win always, but it's one I would count Xavier as confident on. But
Totally.
of course, August made those steps first. They didn't wait for it to happen, and we saw Ethan's rotation up the main stairs was a huge part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to see August go to the top bomb site now as their second pick. Really interesting choice for the second bomb site. Sometimes some people take Tella's Archives, but we have seen CEO come more into meta of the choice. Also bringing this castle is a really classic CEO thing to do. You want to try and castle out some of those doors, especially to Banana like Joey is doing here, just to prevent picks down from Car Park. A really good strat here from August. I think it's a relatively standard thing for them, especially with Derpe on that Echo. They're really going to try and deny that plant. Xavier with the Blackbeard pick as well, probably going to be on the windows. Same thing that August tried to do. I'm curious that Xavier omitted the Ying. I would have expected that they would have brought the Ying as well.
On this side in particular, do you think... For me, the reason I wouldn't take a Ying is you've got to worry about that Echo, and the Echo is not impacted whatsoever about the Ying. So Ying, you're trying to take some ground, and I don't know. Are you really going to try to flush out the ground of the entire top floor? Is that your plan? Because I don't think that the Ying is vast enough in terms of utility to manage to take that full control. And I think that the Echo drones would make it a little bit more difficult to pull off.
Yeah, that's true, and it would require a lot of coordination from the IQ and the Thatcher and potentially other teammates to be able to get that off.
On that last round, though, I just want to say, Ethan, as you mentioned, he essentially won that round for his team. And I think that, you know, we've talked so much about Xavier Esports. They think so organically. They don't get themselves locked into a specific way of thinking, and they're always coming up with new ideas. And I think that that's the way I see Ethan as well, as a player. He's always coming up with these, you know, little bits of counter strategies and little adaptations that make the difference for his team. Yeah,
and we just saw Producer been really struggling to get that yokai.
He knows where it is.
He knows it's there, and he knows it's really important he gets it, but he just can't quite get the angle onto it. There we go. He finally gets that yokai off. That's going to really help them for the execute, having one yokai down already.
Oh, and another great play from Xavier. It's just the absolute patience from Healthcare, watching onto Kanto spot from a very long angle. Of course, playing the Blackbeard, he has every reason to be confident in that gunfight.
Yeah, Diesel's going to have to bring this yokai back to site. He was trying to use it to help with the roam, but now he's going to have to bring it back just in case the plant starts to happen. Diesel himself potentially going to be peeking the Kanto or denying the lobby. He's pushing into that position.
Ooh, like a flank.
There is a flank happening, and the wall is already open, so this is going to be really interesting next 20-30 seconds, whether August try and get a successful flank off, or whether Xavier are able to successfully take the CEO bomb site for an execute.
Still, there's a decent amount of time left for Xavier as they peruse this bomb site. They do have an opening. And you can see Lycol is trying to find anything on these peaks, but it's in fact Emo inside of the Janitors, who does so much damage. August ramping up the pressure now with a flurry of frags. Just 2 players left for Xavier Esports, and it's time to go to the drawing board, check the drones, and see what kind of an opening they may find.
Yeah, and if this actually helps any team, it probably helps Xavier. They're just going to throw caution to the wind, I imagine. They're going to have to start pushing in relatively aggressive. They've only got the IQ and the Blackbeard remaining. The Blackbeard does frag out the Echo. He is taken low, but it's a 3v2 with 40 seconds to go. Producer Boom's going to start pushing down this hallway in towards Janitors. He sees, oh, what a flick from Producer Boom. That's a 2v2 with 30 seconds to go. Xavier have equaled the man advantage here. They're starting to push onto site. It's a really starting to favor the attack. It's still strong for the defense, but the attack can do something. Producer Boom again. He brings it to the 1v2. Ethan is the lonesome one for August. He has full HP though. Xavier both low, so he only has to hit 1 shot onto each. The plant is going down from the Blackbeard, and they're going to be able to hold a crossfire to hold this bomb site, Dev.
And guess who you're peeking onto? It's a Blackbeard. Both of the players are very low. In fact, I believe 1 round from Ethan's gun should take out either player, and I can hear the comms from Xavier just going sky high at the moment. He has such a good angle to hold this, and he does find the first kill. It's a 1 versus 1, and well, one player has a face shield, the other player has full HP. Which will find the frag? Ethan, he doesn't see it in Healthcare with a headshot. Xavier Esports head on to match point.
Wow, that was insanely played from Xavier in that disadvantage they had on the attack. Producer Boom, with IQ just pushing down that hallway, he just single-handedly opened up August and got that advantage back to them. And the Blackbeard was just able to repel in, get the plant, and then they were just able to set up. It was almost in favor of Ethan when he got that frag through the drone hole. But yeah, that Blackbeard just too strong. And
can you imagine if Ethan managed to accomplish that with no information from his teams, no echo drones for his teammates to watch off? Can you imagine if those echo drones had been in play, or if there was a Maestro, if there was a Valkyrie camera? But that wasn't the case because Xavier was so thorough on taking that down. And you saw how many bullets did we see expended from that P12 just trying to find that echo drone? It was, what, 30 rounds or something?
It was a lot, man. It was a lot.
It was like a third of the ammo in that weapon. And it's because he knows how important that is. Like, if it's not working, mix it up. Just keep firing bullets that direction because you have to take out that yokai.
Yep, and we just saw actually Xavier have done a 6th pick onto the off the Dockerby onto the Blackbeard. I like that little bait just to have some intimidation towards August, make them a bit worried about what's happening. Yeah, Healthcare, look at that on the 10 frags at the top there. He's going really strong for Xavier.
It's great. That's the thing I love to see about Xavier as a team. You know, I've seen Healthcare frag out. We've talked so much about Lycolis, who's currently sitting at 5, which is middling. But you know, we nothing to discredit that guy. Every single player on Xavier can do so much work.
Yeah, that's right. And Lycolis, I guess, is a bit more of the X factor for Xavier. Sometimes he can just go absolutely nuts, and you know, that's their day. And even then, it shows credit to their synergy because they can have players that have that impact performance or not, and still do really strong.
So moving into match point here, the question mark for me is that the fact that we didn't get to see 2 of the frags that August had that was such an impact on that round. And so I'm not sure whether they can replicate that, but it looks like they are aware of the fact that they need to start making some impact plays, and Derpet wants to find anything he can with that spawn pick.
Yeah, it's a real sign of that you need to do something that's going to affect the mindset or the early advantage of the other team. So a spawn pick is exactly what that is.
So August had a tactical timeout when they had lost the first half, 5-1, and they immediately managed to, you know, secure a round.
Oh no,
off the
they're
back
getting
of that.
ADS.
Wow, is that a counter? Like, did they put that in a specific spot to counter that angle? I think
definitely looks like it. Yeah, definitely looks like it. That's really, really smart positioning there from Ethan with that ADS. That really has destroyed the utility of that Sophia.
Ethan has a brain the size of a watermelon. Like, seriously, that guy.
Yeah, and we're going to see Healthcare go back to these window positions as Blackbeard. Again, it's the strong traditional position for the Blackbeard. Producer Boom with an interesting pathing here. He's going to put the Claymore down just to prevent that roam later on. But really interesting position to go below. I guess he's expecting August to try and have a lurker potentially mid-round. We did see Ethan try and do something similar to that last round, and he was the one that was lurking at the end. So perhaps that's what Producer Boom was trying to cut off early. Oh, Ethan has been cut off, in fact, by Hajime.
Yeah, so that's rough. I mean, like, we know that in the previous round, Ethan was the only one who really had, you know, had the freedom at the late round. But things are looking just grim for August at the moment. They've lost 2 players. Everything that they throw at Xavier is making no impact, and this is looking to be a swift end to the map 1.
Absolutely. Lycolis is even going for the plant right now. Derpe's tried to dock himself up. He's really low HP, and they've lost the gunfights. And that is match going to Xavier. Really, really well played.
What a fantastic play from Xavier. It was through and through a confident and comfortable match. August, we know that they're good, but Xavier on another level.
Yeah, pretty impressive stuff there from Xavier, and that's kind of contrary to the storyline that we were telling before this map went live. Now, it almost seems like it's kind of flipped on its head, right? Norengo and Ageless, that was supposed to be the one that was supposed to go pretty quickly, and this was supposed to be a match that, you know, really would take the distance, and it's 7-2 to Xavier. I mean, that's a bit of a surprise, surely.
Yeah, it is a bit of a surprise. We definitely expected a really close match between these two, and there were some hard-fought rounds, but it just really, really favored Xavier in that adaptation.
The thing that scares me about this is that it was Bank. And we're talking about August, we're talking about Bank. That's, you know, a marriage made in heaven, or so I thought until now, and it looks like Bank's been cheating on them.
And the difficulty then as well is, of course, going into Oregon, we had our concerns about August on that, and we know Xavier really liked the map.
Yeah, that's right, and that was something that I was really worried about, that if August couldn't shut it out and actually take Bank, that it really does favor Xavier on Oregon. So yeah, I have really grave fears for August trying to adapt to them on Oregon.
There are 2 things I see happening right now. You have option 1, where August haven't played Oregon for a long time, all season, and they're coming into this thinking, okay, we're expecting them to play Oregon because we know they like it. Let's really practice the crap out of Oregon, and let's counter them, watch their VODs, and come in prepared. Or we've got we're going to predict this ban phase and we're going to ban Oregon, or they're going to ban Oregon and we're not expecting to see it. And I mean, that's the difference between a close match that could go either way, or I think, you know, the end for this Australian team.
Yeah, we were talking a lot about the kind of chaotic play style that Xavier brings to a game. Has that been something that's transcended through into the APAC finals again?
Absolutely. I think we definitely saw chaotic playstyle out of Xavier. Every round was different, what they did. You could say the only consistent round was that attack of CEO. They kind of did a similar approach both times. But even then, they adapted to how August like to rotate off the bomb site. They cut that off early, and that's how they got those opening frags. So again, I just think that chaotic play was just really hard for August to read. I
mean, was that really all that it was? Like, or was August not showing up today?
Oh, that's hard to say, but I've got to say, August have been playing really well. We know that they're a very methodical team, and I think it's just simply the fact that, look, August were doing what they do well, but the problem is that their entire, you know, fundamental way that they operate in this methodical, structured way is just hard countered by the Xavier play style.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, though, because August obviously in pretty good form right now, and to go down 7-2, I mean, this is kind of a game where it seems like all the odds are against them now, right? This was probably the toughest quarterfinal that they could have drawn, given the teams that they could have potentially faced. You know, they've had those roster changes that have worked out nicely for them. They looked great at the 6 Oceanic Cup, but now all of a sudden they're down 7-2, going into a map that they're not feeling comfortable on. Is this like the end for August once again?
It's definitely got them back against the wall. They are going to have to work really hard to try and figure out how to counter Xavier on Oregon, because again, it's Xavier's playstyle that's really the hard thing. As Dev was saying, August are a very structured team, they're very counter-strat heavy. Xavier, it's really hard to do that against, so I think at the moment they're really always one step behind Xavier.
Well, we're going to find out whether or not August is going to be able to do it, or if once again for them at the APAC Pro League Finals, it's not really going to go their way. That, of course, all is coming up after the break. We'll be back with Map 2 soon.